Most people believe that once July arrives, the growing season is basically over. You look at the calendar, you feel the heat pressing down on the patio, and a quiet little voice says, well, maybe next year. I used to believe that too. But after years of growing food in a handful of pots on a small patio, I can tell you the opposite is true. Some of the heaviest, fastest, most satisfying harvests I have ever pulled came from things I planted right about now in the warm heart of summer when everybody else had already given up. Here is what I have learned and what I want to hand to you today. When the soil is already warm, seeds wake up faster, roots stretch quicker, and the right plants can go from a dry seed in your palm to food on your plate in a matter of weeks, not months. So this is not a video about waiting until next spring. This is a video about what you can plant this weekend in whatever pots you already own for a genuinely heavy harvest by the middle of August. I still remember the first summer I figured this out. It was a blistering July. My spring lettuce had long since bolted into a bitter, flowering mess. And out of pure stubbornness, I dumped a packet of radish seeds into an old cracked pot I was about to throw away. 26 days later, I was eating them. That cheap little pot taught me more than a whole season of doing things the proper way. We are going to count down 15 container vegetables. You can start right now. And I am saving the best for last because number one is the single plant that gave me the heaviest August harvest I have ever gotten from one pot. And almost nobody plants it at this time of year. Stay with me and I will show you exactly how. Before we begin, do me one small favor. Drop a comment and tell me just one thing. What are you growing in? A balcony, a windowsill, a patio, a few buckets by the back door. That one detail helps me point you in the right direction. All right, let me pour us both a bit of calm and let us walk through these together. Number 15 is the humble radish, and I know exactly what you are thinking. Radishes are a boring spring crop. That is the myth. The truth is that radishes are arguably the most rewarding thing a beginner can plant in the middle of summer because they are the fastest food you will ever grow. Most common varieties go from seed to harvest in about 25 to 30 days, and university extension guides will tell you the seeds themselves germinate in just 3 to 5 days. When soil is warm, they come up almost overnight. Here is why they work so beautifully in a container. Radishes are a root crop, and roots hate heavy, compacted, waterlogged ground. A pot gives them exactly what they crave: loose soil and sharp drainage. You do not need anything deep. A pot just 6 to 8 inches deep will do, filled with ordinary potting mix. Scatter the seeds thinly, cover them with about 1/2 inch of soil, and thin the seedlings so each one has roughly 1 inch of space to swell. That thinning step is the one thing people skip, and it is why they end up with all leaves and no radish. Give them room and keep the soil evenly moist, because a radish that dries out and then gets flooded will split or turn woody and hot. The real payoff is that a radish crop is so fast it becomes your placeholder. You can tuck them in around slower plants and harvest them before the big ones even need the space. But if you want something with a little more staying power, let me show you what I plant right beside them. Number 14 is arugula, and most people assume greens are impossible in summer heat. I believed that for years, watching leaf after leaf bolt and turn bitter. But arugula rewrote that rule for me. Because it grows so fast, you simply harvest it before the heat can ruin it. From seed, you can be cutting tender leaves in as little as 30 days, and baby leaves even sooner. The science here is simple. Bitterness and bolting come from stress and time. a plant racing to make seed before it dies. But when you grow arugula quick and cut it young, you outrun that whole process. In a container, arugula asks for almost nothing. A wide, shallow pot works better than a deep one because you are growing a carpet of leaves, not a taproot. Sow the seeds across the surface, barely cover them, and keep the mix damp. The one trick I lean on hard in July is afternoon shade. If you can set the pot where it gets bright morning sun but is spared the brutal late day blast, your arugula stays sweet and mild far longer. And here is the part that keeps the harvest heavy. Arugula is a cut and come again crop. Snip the outer leaves and leave the center growing, and one pot will feed you for weeks. But if you want that same generosity with something even more forgiving, the next one is where I would start a nervous beginner. Number 13 is loose leaf lettuce, and the myth I want to gently kill is that you cannot grow lettuce once it gets hot. You can, you just have to stop growing it the way the seed packet suggests. Do not grow heads, grow leaves. Loose leaf types, the kind that never form a tight ball, give you a harvest in about 30 to 45 days, and because you never wait for a head to mature, you never lose the whole plant to heat. The reason this matters comes down to how lettuce handles warmth. When temperatures climb, lettuce wants to bolt, to shoot up a flower stalk and turn bitter. A tight head lettuce is a slow, all-or-nothing gamble against that clock. But a loose leaf variety in a pot lets you harvest continuously, taking the outer leaves every few days while the plant keeps pushing new ones from the center. You are always eating and never waiting. Use a wide pot, at least 6 inches deep. Keep it in that same gentle morning sun and afternoon shade, and never let it dry out completely, because thirsty lettuce turns bitter fast. That is the whole secret. Lettuce that is watered steadily and cut young tastes sweet even in the heat of summer. But leaves alone will not fill a plate. So let me move us towards something with real substance. Number 12 is bush beans. And this one genuinely surprised me the first time I grew them in a pot. Most people think beans need a big garden bed and a tall trellis and a whole fence line to be worth it. They do not. Bush beans stay compact. They need no support at all. And from seed, they will hand you a heavy pick of pods in about 50 to 55 days. Plant them now, and you are eating fresh beans well before the middle of August. Here is the quiet magic underground. Bean roots partner with tiny soil bacteria called rhizobia, and together they pull nitrogen straight out of the air and fix it into the soil. In plain terms, the plant partly feeds itself. That is why beans do not need the heavy feeding that so many other vegetables demand, which makes them almost foolproof in a container where nutrients can otherwise run low. Give each bush bean plant a pot of about 2 to 3 gallons, or space a few plants across a larger tub. Sow the seeds an inch deep, water them in, and then, this is important, do not overwater. Beans like warm, moist, well-drained soil and soggy roots will rot before they ever sprout. Once they start producing, pick often. The more you pick, the more the plant makes, because every pod you leave tells it to slow down. But the next crop is one where slowing down is exactly what people get wrong. Number 11 is baby carrots, and the myth here runs deep. Everyone believes carrots are difficult, that they fork, split, and come out stubby and twisted. That happens in the ground, in rocky, heavy soil. In a container, you control everything, and carrots become genuinely easy. Grow the short, round, or baby varieties, and you can be pulling sweet, finger-sized carrots in about 50 to 60 days. The reason a pot beats the ground for carrots is beautifully simple. A carrot is just a root trying to grow straight down. Every pebble, every clod, every hard patch makes it fork or bend. But loose, fluffy, stone-free potting mix in a deep pot gives that root a clear, soft path, so it grows long and straight. Use a container at least 10 to 12 inches deep. Fill it with a light mix, and sow the seeds thinly right on top with only a whisper of soil over them. Carrot seeds are slow and shy to germinate, so keep the surface consistently damp for the first couple of weeks and be patient. That patience is the whole game. Once they are up, thin them so each has room to fatten. The reward is a carrot pulled straight from a pot on your patio, sweeter than anything from a bag. But if patience is not your strength, the next plant forgives you completely. And speaking of things that reward patient, consistent effort, I want to take just a moment here. Everything I have been sharing with you in this video, the timing, the soil depths, the thinning tricks, the watering rhythms, it all comes from years of quiet trial and error in a small space. And I have put the most useful parts of all of it into a book called The Container Harvest, available at the link in the description. There's also an expanded edition called the Container Harvest Yield Edition, and a full field reference called the Complete Container Harvest Field Edition, each one built to sit beside you while you actually garden, not just while you watch videos. If you want a clear, calm guide that walks you through exactly what to grow, when to plant it, and how to get a genuinely heavy harvest from whatever pots you already own, the link is waiting for you down below. Now, back to our list, because there are still 10 more plants to walk through, and the best ones are still ahead. Number 10 is Swiss chard, and I think it is one of the most underrated container plants there is. People assume it is just a bland cooking green, but chard is a workhorse that will feed you steadily from now until frost. You could begin harvesting baby leaves in around 30 days and full stalks in about 50. And unlike so many greens, it does not bolt and quit the moment summer turns hot. What makes chard special is its toughness. It shrugs off heat that would send spinach straight to seed, and it is a cut and come again champion, so a single plant keeps producing for months. The plant biology is on your side. Chard puts its energy into leaves and stalks continuously, so every time you harvest the outer stalks, the crown pushes new ones from the middle. Give it a pot around 8 to 10 inches deep, keep the soil moist, and feed it lightly every few weeks, because leafy plants that produce nonstop do appreciate a steady, gentle supply of nutrients. And here is a bonus that makes it perfect for a small space. The colorful stems, the bright reds and golds and pinks, look beautiful enough that a pot of chard earns its place on a patio for looks alone. But before we go further, I want to stop and speak to two people in particular. Number 9 is kale, and this is where I want to include everyone. If you have grown a big in-ground garden for 20 years, you might be thinking these little pot tricks are not for you. And if you are a complete beginner, you might be worried this is all too advanced. So let me hand you both the same simple thing you can do this weekend with nothing special. Take any pot you already own, at least 8 inches deep, fill it with any potting mix, and sow kale for baby leaves. You will be harvesting tender young kale in about 25 to 30 days. Here is why this works for the seasoned gardener too. Even with a full garden, a pot of baby kale by your kitchen door means you snip a handful for dinner without walking out to the beds, and because it is elevated and contained, the slugs and soil pests that chew your in-ground kale can barely reach it. For the beginner, kale is almost impossible to kill. It tolerates heat, cold, uneven watering, and neglect, and it just keeps growing. Sow the seeds thickly if you want a cut and come again baby crop, or thin them out to a few plants if you want big, mature leaves later. Keep the soil damp, give it good sun, and harvest the outer leaves first. One pot can feed you deep into autumn, but if you want something that regrows even faster and practically for free, keep listening. Number 8 is green onions, and this is the one that feels almost like cheating. Most people buy them at the store, use them once, and toss the roots in the bin. That is the myth, that they are a single-use thing. The truth is that green onions are one of the easiest plants on earth to grow, and you can start them from the very scraps you were about to throw away. Take the white root ends, you cut off store-bought green onions, the little inch-long stubs with the roots still attached, and simply plant them upright in a pot with about an inch of soil over them. Water them, set them in the sun, and within days they begin to regrow from the center. You will be snipping fresh green tops within 2 to 3 weeks. From seed, they take longer, around 60 days. But from scraps, the harvest is almost immediate. The reason this works is that all the energy and the living growing point are stored right there in that white base, ready to push new growth the moment it has soil and water. Use a pot at least 6 inches deep, keep it moist, and harvest by cutting the green tops with scissors, leaving the base in the soil to grow again. One planting can regrow several times. It is the closest thing to free food I know, but the next crop pays you back in a completely different way. Number 7 is beets, and here is a truth that doubles your harvest. Most people grow beets for the root and completely ignore that the tops are one of the most delicious greens you can eat. You are getting 2 vegetables from one seed. Beets mature in about 50 to 60 days, but you can start snipping the young leaves for salads and cooking long before the roots are ready. Beets thrive in containers for the same reason carrots do. They are a root crop that loves loose, stone-free, well-drained soil, exactly what a pot provides. Here is a fact that trips people up, though, and it is worth knowing. Each wrinkled beet seed is actually a little cluster that can sprout several seedlings at once. So even when you sow carefully, you must thin them, snipping out the extras so each beet has room to swell to a good size. Use a pot about 8 to 10 inches deep, sow the seeds an inch apart, and keep the moisture steady, because uneven watering makes the roots tough and woody. Harvest the outer leaves gently as they grow, and lift the roots when they are about the size of a golf ball to a tennis ball, which is when they are sweetest. Leave them too long and they turn fibrous. But if you want a vegetable that gives you a big harvest from a single plant, the next few are where the abundance really begins. Number 6 is the bush cucumber, and I need to correct a belief that keeps people from even trying. Everyone pictures cucumbers as sprawling vines that swallow a whole garden. That is the old way. Modern bush and compact patio varieties stay small and tidy, and they are bred specifically for pots, giving you a real harvest in about 50 to 55 days from seed. Cucumbers are thirsty, fast-growing plants, and this is where a container actually helps you. Because the pot holds a defined amount of soil, you can water deeply and consistently, and consistent water is the entire secret to cucumbers that taste sweet instead of bitter. A cucumber that swings between bone dry and soaking wet turns bitter and misshapen. Steady moisture keeps it crisp and mild. Give a bush cucumber a generous pot, at least 3 to 5 gallons, because that volume of soil holds water longer and keeps the roots from cooking in the heat. Put it in full sun, feed it every couple of weeks once it starts flowering, and pop in a small stake or a little cage even for the bush types, just to keep the fruit off the soil. Then pick often, because every cucumber you harvest tells the plant to make more. Leave a giant one hanging and production slows to a crawl. But if you want the fastest, heavy producer of all the fruiting crops, the next one is famous for it. Number 5 is summer squash, the zucchini and its cousins. And the myth I want to overturn is that squash needs a sprawling garden bed. Bush-type summer squash grows in a surprisingly compact mound, and it is one of the most productive plants you can put in a pot. From seed, you can be harvesting in about 45 to 55 days, and once it starts, it does not stop. The thing to understand about squash is that it is a fast, hungry, thirsty plant with big leaves that lose a lot of water on hot days. That is why the container size matters so much here. Give it a big pot, at least 5 gallons, filled with rich potting mix, and it will reward you with fruit after fruit. Skimp on the pot, and the plant wilts every afternoon and the harvest fizzles. Water it deeply, feed it regularly, and here is the practical tip that saves so many people. Harvest the squash young and small when they are 6 to 8 inches long. A young zucchini is tender and flavorful, and picking them small keeps the plant cranking out more. Let one grow into a giant baseball bat and the plant thinks its job is done and slows right down. Pick early, pick often, and one plant can genuinely feed a household. But the next plant proves that heavy harvests do not always mean big fruit. Number 4 is basil, and I know some of you are thinking, that is an herb, not a vegetable. But I include it because basil, planted now, gives you one of the most generous, continuous harvests of anything on this list, and it thrives in exactly the heat that stresses everything else. Basil loves warmth. This is its season. From a small transplant, you will be harvesting within a couple of weeks, and from seed in about 3 to 4 weeks. The science of a heavy basil harvest is all in how you pick it, and almost everyone does it wrong. Do not strip leaves off from the bottom. Instead, pinch the plant back from the top, cutting just above a pair of leaves. That single cut triggers the plant to split into 2 new stems, and each of those splits again. By pinching regularly, you turn one skinny stem into a full, bushy plant that produces far more leaves. Pinch off any flower buds the moment you see them, because once basil flowers, the leaves turn bitter and growth slows. Give basil a pot at least 8 inches deep, full warm sun, and steady moisture, and keep pinching. A single well-tended plant can flavor your kitchen all summer long. But now we are down to the final 3, and these are the ones that deliver the truly heavy August harvest I promised you. Number 3 is bok choy, and here is the reframe. Most people think of it as a specialty crop for experienced gardeners, something exotic and finicky. It is actually one of the fastest, easiest, most rewarding vegetables you can grow in a pot, ready in about 45 days, and baby bok choy even sooner in around 30. Plant it now and you have crisp, juicy heads well before mid-August. Bok choy is a cool season crop at heart, which makes many people avoid it in summer. But this is exactly where a container gives you power the ground cannot. Because your pot is portable, you can grow it in a spot with morning sun and afternoon shade, keeping it cooler and slowing the tendency to bolt in the heat. That mobility is the whole trick, and it is something no in-ground gardener can do. Sow the seeds in a pot about 6 to 8 inches deep. Thin the seedlings to give each head room, and keep the soil consistently moist, because bok choy is mostly water and any drought stress sends it straight to flowering. Harvest the whole head at the base or take outer leaves as you need them. It grows so fast you can plant a fresh batch every few weeks. But now we are down to the last 2, And these are the ones I would not want you to miss. Number 2 is the turnip. And I will admit, I ignored this one for years. I thought turnips were a slow, old-fashioned, cold weather crop for filling root cellars. I was completely wrong. Fast summer varieties mature in as little as 35 to 50 days, and like beets, they give you 2 crops in one: sweet, tender roots and a heavy flush of nutritious greens. Turnips are perfectly built for containers because they are a shallow-rooted root crop that appreciates the loose, well-drained soil a pot provides. The younger you harvest them, the milder and sweeter they are, closer to a radish than the strong, sharp turnips people remember. Grow them fast, pull them small, around 2 inches across, and you will wonder why you never grew them before. Use a pot about 8 to 10 inches deep, sow the seeds thinly, thin the seedlings so the roots can swell, and keep the moisture even. Snip a few of the greens as they grow, but leave enough to power the root. In under 6 weeks, you can go from a packet of seeds to a genuine filling harvest. But the plant I have saved for number 1 is the one that truly convinced me the growing season is never as over as people think. Number 1 is the dwarf or determinate cherry tomato. And I want to tell you how I got here, because I resisted this for the longest time. For years, I believed the same thing you have probably been told, that if you have not planted your tomatoes by spring, you have missed your chance entirely. So I never bothered starting them in summer. Then one July, almost as an experiment, I put a single small dwarf cherry tomato plant into a 5-gallon pot on the hottest corner of my patio. And what happened changed how I think about late planting forever. Here is the reframe, and it is backed by simple plant science. Tomatoes are tropical plants that love heat, and their seeds and roots grow fastest in warm soil. In spring, when people traditionally plant, the soil is often still cold, and the plants just sit there sulking for weeks. But plant a fast dwarf variety in the warm soil of summer, and it takes off immediately. Choose one of the compact cherry types that mature in about 50 to 60 days, and you will have your first ripe tomatoes right around the middle of August. The container is not a compromise here, it is an advantage. A pot filled with dark soil, sitting in the summer sun, warms up faster and stays warmer than the open ground. And that warm root zone is exactly what a tomato craves. That is the small discovery that surprised me most. The very thing people apologize for, growing in a pot instead of the ground, is the thing that gives you the edge for a late, heavy harvest. Give a dwarf cherry tomato a pot of at least 5 gallons, because that volume of soil holds steady moisture and gives the roots room to work. Set it in full sun, water deeply and consistently to prevent the fruit from cracking or developing that dark, sunken spot on the bottom that comes from erratic watering, and feed it every couple of weeks once the flowers appear. A single healthy plant in a good-sized pot can hand you a couple of pounds of sweet cherry tomatoes across the season from one small container you started when everyone told you it was too late. Pick them as they ripen, and the plant keeps setting more. That is the whole list. 15 vegetables you can plant today for a real harvest by the middle of August. And here is the quiet lesson underneath all of it. Growing your own food was never about having more land or more time or more expensive equipment than the next person. It is about using the small space you have intelligently, choosing the right plants for the season you are actually in, and understanding that consistency matters far more than perfection. A few well-chosen pots, watered steadily and picked often, will outproduce a big neglected garden every single time. If you are the kind of person who would rather grow real, honest food simply in whatever space you already have, instead of overspending and overworking for it, then you are exactly who I make these for. So let me ask you again, the same simple thing from the start. Tell me in the comments what you are growing in this summer. A balcony, a windowsill, a patio, or a few buckets by the back door. And if one of these 15 surprised you, tell me which one. Go ahead and leave that comment now, even just a word or two, because I read them and I plan future videos around what you tell me. If this felt calm and useful, consider subscribing and growing alongside a quiet community of people who are learning to grow more with less. And before you go, here is what is coming next. I am going to show you the simple, almost invisible watering mistake that quietly ruins container harvests in late summer, and the 2-minute fix that saved my pots through the hottest weeks of the year. Until then, go put a seed in some soil. It is not too late. It never really was. So that's the overview, but here's the thing. Stay with me inside the small plot circle and you get my container garden's full midsummer planning schedule, picking up right where this video stopped. In there you can ask me your own questions, and a real person, me, answers you myself. You're not doing this alone. Just point your phone's camera at the code on screen, and you can cancel anytime, one click, no risk. Now that you know what to plant, let me show you how to get twice as much from every pot. I'll share 10 simple tips that make your containers overflow with food. It's starting right here.